Thanks to our holy Bara.
Bara, and then you guys, and then the class.
Okay. Yeah, earlier I was like, I have to pull my Drishti Point script or else I'm going to be teaching ACI. Now it's the other way around. Got a little caught in the rain. Locked up here. Yeah, you guys can move closer.
This is cozy.
Us.
Mhm.
We can just have a chat.
Sashi Puki Jukshin Meto Tramri Ravlingshi Nyendegen Padi Sange Shindu Mikte Uwar Hidroku Namda Shingle Chuparsho Idam Guru Ratna Mandalakam Niratayami Sange Chudam Sokni Choknamla Jangchu Bardu Dakni Kyapsuchi Daki Chinyen Ginpe Sunamki Rola Penchir Sange Truparsho Sange Chudam Sokni Choknamla Jangchu Bardu Dakni Kyapsuchi Daki Chinyen Kinpe Sunamki Drola Penchir Sange Druparsho Sange Chudam Sokni Choknamla Jangchu Bardu Dakni Kyapsuchi Daki Chinyen Kinpe Sunamki Drola Penchir Sange Druparsho.
ACI 11. So I think we have a little bit of a holiday hangover with the classes. But for everyone who survived ACI 17, we're back to Master Shantideva's Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, and it's just exquisite. We're going to be, this is the second of 3 courses that we take to cover the main topics of the whole book. So Geshe-la started this particular class by reminding everybody what the purpose of the class is. Like, why even take this class? And he wants us to be very clear on what its function should be in our lives, because these are precious. These are precious, precious teachings, and working through the 6 perfections, the activities that it takes to become, we're already baby bodhisattvas, but to become someone who truly can help all others, it's pretty sweet. So there's 4 different activities, like he'd like to remind us, that are really important in our lives. One is formal study, where you go to class and you sit and you hear the teacher go blah, 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 and then you do your homeworks and quizzes and finals and all of that, right? Like you actually do the intellectual book study. And in this course, interestingly enough, Geshe got a little wrathful. He told people, anyone listening on Ustream, that you cannot miss more than 2 classes. He actually made it, in other classes, he's never really said that. You know, it's like drop in, everybody's welcome. Everybody is welcome. But the stuff that he teaches in this course is so precious. And it's not for him, it's not for me that you guys show up. So thank you for showing up. But and I'm not saying that you won't be allowed in if for some reason you have to miss 3 classes. But I have to say, this is what Geshe said at the beginning of this particular course. Out of 11 courses that he taught, this is the first time that I have heard him say that so clearly. So that's how he started. And the reason he said that was because it's not so much even about you. It's that if you miss more than 2 classes, you miss the nuances, you miss the fine commentaries, and then you won't be able to pass it on perfectly. There'll be holes in your knowledge about what you can pass on. So it's the people coming after you who are going to suffer. So be a little strict with ourselves, is what he says. The second of the 4 activities that are very important for our lives is a daily practice. You do need to develop some sort of daily practice, which, a nice way to see it is to have some kind of meditation in the morning or some sort of daily discipline, or else this stuff won't work. And the ACI courses are perfect because they give you a contemplation to do daily if you've run out of other things, which if you've been coming here for any length of time, you never run out of things. And even at the end of ACI 17, I know Lama Marut gave us the outline of a suggestion for a daily practice. So, but don't do it just because somebody else came up with it or somebody tells you that this is the way to do it. You really need to follow what feels right for you, but make it daily, make it regular. Does not have to be a 2-hour yoga asana sequence every day, especially if your normal job doesn't allow for that, for example. But do something regularly every day. Discipline as your daily practice. And if you have any questions about that or need any advice, there's lots of teachers here who can help. Lots of yogis here who can help. So, it's really sweet. Thirdly, you must be able to meditate. You must be able to get into a deep state of meditation. So you do need to study and you need to learn the tools to do that. We've got such a lovely meditation lineage starting to happen here on Wednesday nights with the classes that Lama John's teaching and what other meditation teachers have taught. Doug Beenhoff is coming back next month to lead a shamatha. Actually, it's picking up where he left off with the shamatha retreat and taking us even further. So, like that. But more importantly, even than the book learning, because seriously, if we could take one meditation and perfect it, we'd be done. It's the doing it regularly enough and not getting bored and not losing, interest in it. That is our battle. But you do have to make time for retreat, for meditation, and that includes retreats, actually. So it's good to start. Now, I do not recommend jumping into retreat if you don't already have a daily meditation practice going. But once you do, then you can really crank up your daily practice if you also plan for retreats where you get some incubation time, and it really will take you to higher levels. And then the 4th is what Geshe likes to call laboratory studies. This is a nice way of calling work. This is like whatever job you do or whatever you do out there to keep yourself fed and clothed and sheltered and able to serve others, right? So for most of us, if we don't have the karma to be living our dharma 100%, teaching or practicing and all of that, which many people actually have figured that one out, but I'm not quite there yet. So I have a job, and actually I haven't had a job in a long time, but I now have a job. So it's what I say in a long time. It's I've been self-employed for a long time, so it's an interesting new year where there is a job to go to, but interesting enough, Geshe considers that to be one of the 4 crucial activities. We need a laboratory in which to practice our dharma. It's no good to just be in a cave all by yourself because you will never get the buttons pushed that you need to test whether you've gotten over all of your mental afflictions. And there's no good in sitting in a cave and reading Master Shantideva's chapter on patience and just doing that. Like, the real test is when you come out of that cave and someone does something that's infuriating and you don't feel it as infuriating. That's the practice. But unless you have that person to test you, who knows, right? So it's important that you have real live situations to practice in. Sometimes when I say that, people say I have way too many situations to practice in, but consider yourself lucky. So we're, of course, going to work on the study part in these classes, okay? But interestingly enough, as I said, Holy Geshe-la has set these courses up so beautifully that embedded in that are the other two of the, right? You've got your study, you've got your meditation, you've got your daily practice, really embedded in there. And then it's, for those of us who have to work for a portion of our lives, we have that Dharma lab to practice in. So it's all good. Okay, let's go over the book that we're studying. This will be a bit of a review from last course, but just in case you forgot over the Christmas cookies and all of that, it's the Bodhisattva Charyavatara. That's the Sanskrit for the Guide to a Bodhisattva's Way of Life, exactly. The short form in Tibetan is Chunjuk. Say Chunjuk. Chunjuk. Geshe-la has this thing, you got to know what it is you're studying. Do you know why, Zoe? Have you heard the story? He was a student. He was a monastic student studying to be a monk, and he was with a fellow monk, and they were at a train station in India, and some famous, not the Dalai Lama, but somebody really high up in the hierarchy, either his tutor or like somebody really big in the Dalai Lama lineage, the train pulled in, and there was all this fanfare, and he has a chance to meet this holy man briefly, and he and his buddy student monk are there, and I believe they were with one of their teachers, and this holy Lama says to them, "What are you studying?" And they couldn't remember. and his teacher was so embarrassed, and so Geshe-la to this day says, "You have to know what it is." I mean, he knew what it was that they were studying, but he couldn't remember the title of the book. Like, he didn't actually know it off the top of his head. So if anyone asks and you can't remember Bodhisattva Charyavatara, because that's really a long thing to say Chunjuk. Okay, that's what you're studying right now. Now, what we are going to study is a commentary by Gyaltsab Je. You guys know who Gyaltsab Je is? He's up on our wall here.
Disciple of Master Sangha? No.
Disciple of, he's one of those two guys sitting at the foot of
Disciple of Jetsun Kappa.
Yes. So he is actually quite literally the right-hand man. He sits to the right of Jetsun Kappa. So that's Gyaltsab Je. On the left is Kajiwara. Kajiwara is known as the lineage holder of the Tantric studies, and Gyaltsab Je is the throne holder of the seat of Jetsun Kappa of these teachings. So I don't throw in a lot of Tibetan in my classes because I have to admit I'm not versed in it, but Geshe-la, of course, is fluent, and we do have people who have really great seeds for Tibetan. Is Leonardo having a hard time hearing us?
Yeah, she says the volume. She's having a hard time with the volume, but it's all the way up. Maybe I'll put it a little closer.
Hi, Leonardo. Can you hear me now? You can text Farah if you can't hear. We do have that lovely microphone that Dustin gave us in the kitchen.
Right.
The snowball microphone. I think it's in the cupboard.
That way, yeah, just in case.
We'll try to plug in the little snowball microphone. I'm going to call it microwave. But we'll try that. It's for those who have the karma to hear this class. Because it kind of all boils down to that. It's really, really interesting. So there's a couple of other words that Geshe-la gives us. These aren't homework questions, but there's a couple of other words that's interesting to know for what this book is called. And so repeat after me. Gyal, se, jok, ngok. So jok-ngok is, it's hard, it's one of those palatal, like where you stick your tongue at the back of your, nasal, where you stick your tongue at the back of your, and you get this sort of nasal sound, so it's like an NGW sound altogether. Gyal se, jok, ngok. Yeah. So gyal means Buddha, another word for Buddha, and se means son or daughter. So Gyalse is child of the Buddha, children of the victors, they sometimes say, right? And that's the Bodhisattva, right? And then that joknok is a very unusual word in Tibetan. It's an actual word for, in Tibetan, now Tibet has rivers, big rivers, and a lot of time travel was by foot or by yak or horse or whatever it is they ride, right? And so these rivers are pretty quickly moving. So they had to traverse these. Now Tibet is also known for some pretty amazing architecturally designed hanging bridges, but for the most part there are these big bodies of water where you have to find the perfect entry point where it's the most shallow. And usually you actually cross the river going at an angle downstream. But it's not so much the downstream part, it's that finding that entry point that is the most conducive to traveling over swiftly and safely. That point is called a joknok. So that's what they call it, this book, the literal book is the entry point for the children of the Buddhas, right? So it's the most convenient place to enter if you want to become a Bodhisattva. That's what this book is. That's the title of the book. So Gyaltsab-je has divided the root text into a series of contemplations. It's like poetry. That's what a lot of scripture is like, and then you need the commentaries to unpack them. But the poetry is quite lovely. So this class, this particular class is taught in a really sweet way, where I am going to read you poetry. You are going to actually listen to it in contemplation. And then we'll talk about it a little bit. And then several of them I'll read again once you've heard the commentary on it. And that's basically going to be your homework. Like whatever the homework says what you should do is review the class. Remember your favorite quotes that are all in your reading and contemplate them and hear them as you're contemplating them as if someone was reading your poetry. Okay? So that's how we're going to run this particular class. The other thing, I told you about the 4 activities that Geshe-la likes to remind us that are important. Well, there's 3 ways that you learn something according to Tibetan Buddhism. According to, in Tibetan, the words I'm going to give you are in Tibetan, but according to Buddhism, there are 3 ways that you learn something. And so repeat after me. Tu, sam, gom. Tu, sam, gom. Tu, sam, gom. That means, I love this one actually, it's like one of the few Tibetan words I remember. Tu means you hear it in class. Sam means you think about it, you contemplate. And gom you'll hear a lot. Like you'll hear it gompa, gom rim, it's meditating. Gom is where you repeat something over and over in your mind, and it's the word for meditation, for deep states of meditation. So you habituate your mind. So tu sam gom, you learn it, you think about it, and you meditate on it. Those are the 3 ways that they say you learn. So that doesn't mean there's 3 different ways to learn. It means that when you learn, you should incorporate all 3 for a complete path of learning, basically. Normally, when we start a new course, the first class is usually an overview of what the whole course is going to be, the chapters, and the syllabus. We're not going to do that. If you look in your readings, the syllabus is pretty self-explanatory. So we don't necessarily need to arrange for binders and stuff unless you want, but you can go online and get all of the information for free on acidharma.org. We do have back there, and I think over here, we do have resource versions of the binders. The only things they don't have are the homeworks, quizzes, and finals.
Oh.
So there should be an ACI binder for every single course in our library. Like those white binders there, you should look through them.
They didn't. There wasn't 11 in there.
Wasn't okay. Somebody might have it out.
Okay.
But there should be one copy floating around, and if not, I'll check with people I know who have taken the course also. Because the readings, we all print them out, and the readings are beautiful, but they're they don't change, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to share a resource here, you can too, and just you'll have to print out your own homeworks and quizzes and final, but you can do that, and it is all online. So I find everybody with smartphones and laptops now, it's way easier to keep on top of your ACI homeworks and all of that stuff without even having to print it out. So there is that. So we're not going to go through the syllabus, but what I will tell you is that the breakdown basically of this whole course of the 10 classes is we'll have 3 classes on the perfection of patience, we'll have 3 classes on joyful effort, and we'll have 4 classes on the perfection of meditation. So those are the 3 perfections that we're going to cover in ACI 11. Okay. So basically we're going to first talk about the art of not getting angry. And then we will cover the art of finding joy in doing good. And then we'll get on to one of the best presentations on meditation. And it's interesting because when we take ACI 3, the meditation course, we don't actually refer to Master Shantideva so much. We do go to Master Chandrakirti's, Dharmakirti's books on meditation, right? So there are many, many great books on meditation in our lineage, but it's interesting, the chapter on the perfection of meditation in here is exquisite. So we'll cover that in the last 4 classes of this course. Remember too that we're going to have 5 classes, and then we'll have 1 week of debate so that you can review the first 5, and then we'll have the next 5 classes, and then there will be a review for those who want it on the final in that last week. Okay, so we're going to do the first contemplation. So assume the position, put down your notebooks, and just get into an easy meditation seat. Close your eyes and just listen. So this isn't a formal meditation. We're not going to go through the 7 limbs and all of that. We're just going to get right into opening your heart to listen, okay? A single instance of anger destroys whatever good deeds you may have amassed in thousands of eons spent in practices like giving and making offerings to those who have gone to bliss. There is no kind of deed as evil as the act of anger. There is no spiritual hardship like patience. Patience, then, concentrate on patience in many different ways. Okay, you can open your eyes again. So that first contemplation is called Anger Destroys Good Karma. These are the opening lines of Master Shantideva's chapter on this. And he's saying something really radical here. He's saying that a single occurrence of anger in your mind can destroy thousands of eons of good karma. I don't know if you've taken the ACI course on the Abhidharma, ACI 9, but it tells, not 9, 5? No, 5 is on karma. No, actually it was, I think it was 9. Past and future lives, that one. And death in the rounds of existence.
4 and 8.
Okay, so those 2 start to deal with, I think it was 8 then, that deals with because 9 was Vinaya. So it's the course on Abhidharma, and they actually do the math on what an eon is, how many kalpas to an eon. Basically, it's write the number 10 with 60 zeros after it. 60. And you can basically call it millions of years, right? But according to Master Shantideva, one instance of anger destroys that much good karma. So, sometimes it's hard to believe because, first of all, it's even hard to even imagine that many years to begin with, right? Like, it's a big number. But the question is, and this is really something to get really clear on. Like, what is the use of good karma? Like, why is good karma useful? And really, I mean, we all want it. We all want good karma rather than bad karma, right? We always say because it gives a good result to me. So we want what makes us happy, and that's fine. But you know what? Anything you like, anything that you like about yourself, about someone else, about your day, about your experience, about your environment, anything you like about your mind, anything you're proud of, anything that you're happy about, all of that is the result of good karma. So if you had no good karma, you wouldn't have any of that. Okay? It's your good karma that's protecting all of those things for you. So a single instance of anger can destroy all of that. That's why it's important to know. It has that kind of power. So, because that number is so big, it's hard to fathom. And it's hard to even fathom that we would even have that much good karma to wipe out, But that's what Master Shantideva is saying. And Master Chandrakirti, who I mentioned earlier, out of context actually, in his Madhyamika Avatara, he says exactly the same thing. That this is not just a metaphor. This is not just some exaggerated description to kind of scare us all straight. It's real, he says. That Master Shantideva is actually describing what happens when we get angry. So, how often do you have anger? How often, because anger in this chapter can refer also to low-level irritation that can pop into your mind at people or things or traffic jams or it's too hot, it's too cold, it's too wet, it's too dry, that sort of thing. Like that is anger. But here we're not talking about that. We're talking about a very special type of anger. It has to be very powerful and it has to be focused at a bodhisattva specifically. Okay? The anger that destroys 1,000 million years of good karma has to be focused at a bodhisattva. So I know instantly we kind of think, okay, I haven't been angry at a bodhisattva. But here's the tricky part. How do you know who's a bodhisattva, really? Like we can't prove that they are a bodhisattva, but we can't prove that they're not a bodhisattva either, right? Just like you can't prove that they're enlightened or that they're not. The thing is, if they're truly a bodhisattva, like we're talking first level and higher, bodhisattva has already had a DPE and higher, they're not going to tell you, right? That's one of the things you learn about realized beings, is that they often masquerade as ordinary schmucky people beside you, here to get you further, right? So that's the tricky part. Pabonka Rinpoche used to say that probably the person sitting next to you is a bodhisattva or a Buddha, and you don't even know. But then there is that thing that, with the whole karma, the complete paths, you do actually have to think you know. So, like there does have to be that. So again, I'm kind of flip-flopping between it's not so bad, yes it is. No, it's not, yes it is. But the fact is, it's a good rule of thumb to always be wondering if someone is a bodhisattva or not, and to act as if, right? That way you kind of hedge your bets. That way you're protected. But know that it has to be very, very powerful anger focused specifically at a bodhisattva who is a bodhisattva, who you know to be a bodhisattva, for this to be that drastic. Okay? Because it has to do with the intensity with which your mind grasps to something as self-existent. Okay? Anger cannot happen if we are not somehow mistaking something as self-existent. We think the person yelling at us is the cause of our unhappiness, our defensiveness, our ire, right? We think that the hand that slapped the face is the thing that caused the, like we react. This is very much like the interview that Dee Dee and I just had on Drishti Point, where it was about, she was saying about a whole other process, but how we often, something will happen and we think the experience or the thing that happened is the problem. The thing that happened is just the messenger. The thing that happened is just the delivery system. But for us to react with wisdom, it does take a little bit of practice, because our natural inclination actually is to react, is just to like a knee-jerk reaction out of our own ignorance. Because if that if that messenger, if that delivery system upsets us, angers us in any way, we have mistaken the object, right? We have mistaken as something that is self-existent. So Geshe-la goes further to say you cannot get angry if you are not ignorant. And conversely, when you are getting very angry, it's your own ignorance that is ruining your mind. So isn't that interesting? Anger is a barometer for the intensity of our own ignorance. The more angry you get, the more tendency that you have towards anger, and the more you will grasp to things as self-existent. So that is the explanation of that beautiful poetic contemplation. Okay? Master Shantideva and Gyaltsab Je go into the destruction that anger does to you in two ways. In ways that you can see and in ways that you cannot see. So we get a bit of a break, or you could say in ways that you are aware of and in ways that you are unaware of. But either way, it's destructive. There's also, I'm going to throw a little bit of Tantra at you. In the secret teachings, they also say anger has a very specific and profound effect on your light body, on your energetic body, on your, we're talking your channels, your nadis, like all of that. And even if you've taken, have you taken THY1? Okay, well, THY1 talks about the central channel. Lama John is going to do a THY1 YTT this summer here, actually. But THY1 talks about the Contemplation in Tibetan Heart Yoga Series 1 is that you visualize your body, your central channel, which runs from your Ajna Chakra, your third eye, up and around, and it parallels, it runs right in front of where your spine is. In fact, your spine is where it is because that's where your central channel runs. And your two side channels start at your nostrils, and they actually crisscross. They choke it off at what we know as chakras, but for THY1, we like to visualize them as parallel because that's what we're trying to get to, right? And they're thinner, and they all kind of converge at the bottom. But so in a healthy state, the channels are clear, and they're running clear. They're not blocked, and eventually the side channels dissolve completely into the central. That's what we're aiming for with yoga, with which is tantric practice actually. But what happens is that if we have anger, now it's interesting. Anger expressed at an external object runs in your right channel. It's the hot, but anger expressed at yourself, which is self-doubt or low self-esteem, runs in the left channel. Either way, it chokes those channels off, and it just ruins your energetic system, right? So these are ways that it even has a profound effect in your secret teachings. And see, this is the karmic result that you cannot see. because you can't see that happening, right? But you will feel it. You will feel it by the very fact that you're less happy, and that your world starts to deteriorate around you, and you're not even knowing why. So the bottom line is, if you don't like anything in your world, stop getting angry. Stop getting angry about it, and stop getting angry in general. That's a problem that you cannot see. So back in that quote, right, which the beautiful quote by Gyaltsab, which said that there is no deed as evil as the act of anger, and there's no spiritual hardship like patience. So there is no act that a person can do that is as evil as anger, and there's no spiritual practice that is as amazing as practicing patience. So this is actually an austerity. This is what in the Yoga Sutra we call a tapas. This would be, and a tapas is like the heat. It's like the fire that you find, right? Like you forge your spiritual stamina and your inner goals, against these tapas. And they call them spiritual hardships sometimes, but it's this real, and they say like one of the highest is the antidote to like fighting anger. Fighting anger when everything conspires to put you in a full-blown rage, and anyone around you would be like urging you on and applauding you if you got angry, right? Like in a normal sense. Mm-hmm. And in all those conditions, because of your wisdom, you don't lose it. You do see it for what it is. In that moment, that is the highest of spiritual practices. Yeah. So Master Shantideva, you know how he was kind of saying, you can't just be living in a cave? He said he doesn't care about people meditating in caves for 2 years. It doesn't make you a tough guy. It doesn't make you a warrior. What makes you a spiritual warrior is if you can sit in your office or in your workplace and your boss comes up to you or a customer comes up to you and screams at you, and you can keep your joy. You can keep your joy. Then you are a spiritual Superman. And just to keep your patience in everyday life is more of a sign of high realizations than anything else. That's kind of sweet. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I am not a very visual meditator. I'm not. I'm more feeling based, and sometimes it's auditory for me, but it's not. It's rarely is it visual. Rarely do I see things in Technicolor and all of that. And I do know meditators who do, although we don't talk about this stuff openly, but I've got some close Dharma friends, and I know some of them do. And I know at a certain point I was thinking, I suck. I can't do it. I've tried. And then I finally got over that when I realized that there's no perfect way. It's your way. It's wherever you, however open you are for the realizations to come through, right, or the teaching to come through. And I do know that that it's encouraging when I hear something like this, because I have gotten much better through this type of practice, through this type of study, at practicing. I can't say I've perfected perfection yet, but I'm certainly much better now than I was, say, 5 years ago or 10 years ago. And so to recognize that as a realization is really cool. And you'll see that in a semi-educated Buddhist. You'll see half-started sentences, and where people are checking themselves with watching their reactions as they come up, because they understand, right? And to even be able to practice that sort of discipline, that reining in of your tendency to get irritated or frustrated, is a tapas. It's a practice of high spirituality. So Master Shantideva had just said, right, like, you're not a tough spiritual guy just because you were in a cave for 2 years. You want to show me a great Buddhist? Show me someone who can keep their cool under fire and understand why they are doing it. So it's not just about being a bump on the log and just trying to ignore everything and deny everything. It's not about that at all. It's like keeping your cool, knowing full well why you're doing it. It's pretty cool. Okay, next, contemplation. But you know what? I'm going to read that one again, and then I'm going to roll into the next one, okay? So, now that you know all the blah blah on that, let's go through it again. A single instance of anger destroys whatever good deeds that you may have amassed in thousands of eons, spending practicing like giving offerings to those who have gone to bliss. There is no kind of deed as evil as the act of anger. There is no spiritual hardship like patience. Practice then. Concentrate on patience in many different ways. If you hold to the sharp pain of thoughts of anger, your mind can know no peace. You find no happiness, no pleasure. Sleep stays away, and the mind remains unsettled. Okay, you can open your eyes. So now he's starting to get into the problems that you can see, the problems of having anger, the results that you can see. And you don't need to be a rocket scientist to figure these one out, right? He's just in that stanza giving you five different ways. First of all, he says your mind will know no peace. That's the first one. Your mind cannot be in peace. Now, at a cursory level, right? Like if you're ticked off at someone, all you can think about is, well, they said this and then they did that, and you're just like, rah, 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 like inside, right? So that there's that, but that's like basic. But what Gyaltsabje is talking about is that you can't get to nirvana, because peace, Shiva, is another name for nirvana, right? So as long as anger is ruling you, controlling you, you will not be able to get to nirvana, which is the cessation of that sort of train of thought, right? Or that sort of habit. So he's really talking about that, the ultimate peace. You can find no peace. The second one is that you won't be happy. You can't be happy. He says you will find no happiness. And Master Shantidev is really speaking about how it will ruin your mental state. Like mentally, you just can't be happy. Like the slightest bit of anger will melt away any happiness you may be feeling, right? That's the second one. Third, he says no pleasure. So physically, right? Have you ever experienced anger where your body starts to shake and it starts to hurt? Like anger actually can make your stomach feel bad. Like you feel sick to your I'm so angry, I'm sick to my stomach, right? Like a lot of people say that. And it feels bad for as long as you're holding on to that anger, right? There's some kind of a physical feeling. There's no pleasure that way. And as long as you have any kind of anger, it's actually one of 5 obstacles to meditation, because it ruins your meditation. It blocks you from feeling good. And again, in a way, Geshe-la doesn't repeat it again here, but you know that stuff I went into about the subtle body, and right, because that is I'm giving you a secret teaching, but that whole level, like we are talking about the pranic body, you are really with that when you're angry, and so of course, thought and winds ride in tandem, right? That is also the other mantra of is it okay that the screen went black? Well, it just says Firo's map book error.
Oh, that's very odd.
Well, it's because we're getting into. I tell you, so you gotta have the karma to hear this.
Totally.
No, it's true. It's true. Like I think that's why Geshe-la said you can't miss more than 2 classes, because this is the stuff that happens. I tell you, no, it's true. Okay. So no peace, no happiness, no pleasure, right? Anger will block you from feeling good. You can't get to that because they say also, right, from an energetic body, when you do get into those high states of meditation, when you've got the karma to do it and everything is flowing and you've yogaed your body and you yogaed your mind, the winds ride in the central channel and it feels blissful. And you can't do that if your side channels are choked. So there's that. The fourth one, you can't sleep. Well, that's a no-brainer, right? My mother always says, do not go to bed angry. Like, do not have a fight with someone and then go to bed after that without resolving it. Oh, Leonardo says she can still see me when my screen goes black. Okay. You have the karma to hear this class. Okay, the fifth one, he says that the mind remains unsettled. So, this is a really interesting one because basically what anger does is it tips you off balance. It takes you off of your center. And, you know, literally and figuratively. Like literally, right? Anger really just takes you off your game. And figuratively, like energetically, like you can't, meditation is when you're in a balanced state. And that just can't happen. So those are the 5 things that you can't see. Okay, so let's listen to that one again. If you hold to the sharp thoughts of anger, your mind can find no peace. You find no happiness, no pleasure. Sleep stays away and the mind remains unsettled. So keep your eyes closed. We'll go right into the next one. Suppose there were a master who bestowed upon all those within his care what wealth and honor as they wished. They'd rise to kill him if they lived in fury. It leaves your friends and family tired of being with you. They refuse to stay on even though you may entice them with gifts. Okay. That's the next stanza. And so Master Shantideva and Gyaltsab Je divide this section into 2 parts. The last quote was about anger that destroys in ways that you can see and that you can't see, right? That you are aware of, that you're not aware of. So this is about anger ruining your own happiness, your own physical well-being, which we kind of touched on, but this is reinforcing it. And secondly, how it ruins your relationship with friends and family. So let's deal with the latter one first. And this is actually probably the most obvious in relationships. This is why marriages fail or long-term couples break up. You know, especially long-term couples, long-term, you've been with someone for a long time, they know exactly what to say to you, right? And so you've built this relationship, this years of loving this person or whatever, and 10 minutes of saying the wrong thing can destroy all of that. We've seen it happen, right? So, 10 minutes of true anger between 2 people can ruin years of friendship. And the hard part is, I think one of the hardest things about letting any of that go is because those 10 minutes, you wonder if they were thinking that for the past 10 years, right? And it's like that. It goes to, it ruins relationships. So that's the latter one. The first one, Master Shantideva is talking about the master who bestowed upon all those within his care. So we're talking, Master Shantideva lived in ancient India, right? And he was a prince. He was born a prince. So he's kind of giving an example that was current in his day about if you're like the lord of a kingdom, you could even say the master of a household. And, you're bestowed upon all those within his care what wealth and honor as they wished. So if you were to look after them and feed and shelter them and clothe them and all of that stuff, they would still rise to kill him if they lived in fury. So basically, it says if this being, this benefactor, were then to resort to anger, then quite literally the family, the kingdom, could rise up and kill him. And despite the fact that he'd looked after them for, he or she had looked after them for all that time, like that was the most powerful effect. But here's the interesting thing: if we take this out into concentric circles, because I don't know about you, but I don't rule a kingdom, and like, so how is this relevant to me, right? How is my anger relevant to being a master of anything? And the thing is, think about your own role with people in your life, be they colleagues or partners or family or friends or anything like that, anyone you have to interact with. And they won't literally kill you, especially if you're a good practicing Buddhist, right? Hopefully. But they can murder you in different ways. They can either get sick of you physically and mentally and disassociate themselves. You'll feel isolated. And eventually they leave, physically, mentally, or both, They just get tired and go away. And that actually is one of the effects of anger. It's one of the deteriorations, one of the destructions that happens. Okay. So the summary of that, to put it simply, there is no one with anger who can be happy. Anger, our enemy, brings us these and other pains as well. So Master Shantideva and Gyaltsab Je, actually, in paraphrasing or in turning Master Shantideva's teachings into prose like this, wants us to really know the problems of anger, of the fact that we're destroying massive amounts of good karma in our mind stream, and as a result, our mind will become more and more unhappy. And these are pretty drastic examples, but it's that serious. So he wants us to really, really get it. In your lifetime, though, with proper practices, if you do the opposite, there is the promise. Therein lies the promise, right? You can get everything you ever wanted and more. And all of the benefits, right? All of the opposite of all of that. So, so he's given us all the problems with anger. Now we're going to, thankfully, find out what we can do about it. Okay? We said earlier at the start of class, a single instant of anger, a single occurrence of anger focused at a bodhisattva destroys an entire collection of good karma in your mind, right? And he says it pulls it out right at the roots. Here's the thing. Anger actually physically makes people ugly. It does. And it's interesting, right? As people age, right, they get, I shouldn't even say that. When people appear to age and they appear to look more angry, like the more wrinkles you have, sometimes the more angry a person can. I remember saying to a relative when I was a really ignorant child, "Are you mad at me?" And I realized they were just. I realized much later that they were actually expressionless, but it was their face, right?
Frozen.
And it wasn't actually that they were angry, but the effects of a lifetime of anger had shown up. That so to a child it was a little scary. It's and so it's like that. So it's not actually that they started looking less pleasant because they got old. They got old and looking less pleasant because they were angry. Yeah. And you know why? Because that anger burned off all of their good karma. And all that could rise to the surface was the results of their bad karma. So that's actually a very visceral, gross
experience of what Master Shantideva was talking about. And, I see it in ageless yogis who their age defies. I mean, Master Iyengar is deep into his 90s, and he's still smiling up a storm, And does he have a few wrinkles? Yes. But does he look absolutely beatific? Yes. And there's a gentleman at my workplace on my board who is 94, and he still drives, and he still comes and advises us on things. And he's a little bent over from being in his 90s, but he has the most baby soft looking face, and always a smile, And if you didn't know he was 94, you could swear that he was at least 10 or 15 years younger than that. You know what I mean? It's remarkable that, but that to me is, and I can't guarantee that he has no anger, but I can definitely see the difference between him and another 95-year-old. And, even their outlook is, his outlook is so, he's always smiling and laughing. And, there is something to be said about the actual physical experiences, right? Okay. So the next contemplation is going to be talking about what causes anger, what triggers anger in a person, because we want to know what to do about it, right? So if we're going to do something about it, we want to know what triggers it. Okay. Anger feeds on the food of feeling upset, then strengthened turns to smash me. And so then, I will smash the sustenance that feeds this enemy of mine. My foe knows no other kind of work at all than to cause me pain. No matter what happens, I will never allow my joy to be disturbed. Feeling upset cannot accomplish my hopes and only makes me lose the goodness that I have. If there is something I can do about it, why should you feel upset? If there is nothing you can do about it, what use is being upset? There is nothing in the world which does not come easily if you don't make them a habit. Make then a habit of bearing the small pains and thus endure the greater. So, in terms of trying to identify what we can do about it, he wants to identify the trigger, because if you identify the trigger, you can avoid it. You can avoid the trigger. That's one of the things you can do so that you don't get angry at all, right? So he's defined being upset, that bad feeling that starts when something you want to happen doesn't happen, or something that you don't want to happen starts to happen. That off balance state of mind, right? That's the beginning of being upset, when something's not quite going your way, and that's a prelude to anger. That's a trigger. Anger is always preceded by feeling off balance or upset, some kind of unhappiness with the way things are going. It's not actual full-blown anger yet. You can call it just, it might not even be what you would identify as upset. It's just feeling a little off. Okay? But that's the trigger. So, see, he's identified that being upset is the food that anger feeds on. So let's deny anger its food, is what he's saying, and it will die. If you feed the anger, right? See, if you're already feeling slightly off balance or slightly upset, and you dwell on that, it gives anger something to eat. And then you start to feel more upset. Do you ever notice how people who are sort of frustrated or upset, and they start to talk about it, they get more upset because they're feeding their anger, right? They're fueling it. So the more off balance you get, the more anger gets strengthened. See, and as soon as we're upset, our mind gets off balance, and a little bit of anger is like feeding a wild animal. And when it gets more and more satiated, then you can't stop it. So Master Shantideva said, let's starve it. Don't give him anything. Don't give anger anything to eat, and he will die. So what are we supposed to do? Like Master Shantideva was telling us what to do, right? He's saying, so stop getting upset. Well, really easy to say, right? But it doesn't always work. It doesn't always work, right? Or it doesn't seem to. So in the latter part of that verse, Master Shantideva starts to give us reasons why getting upset is stupid. So he's giving us the logic now, because it is hard in the moment. But he's going to give us the logic of why getting upset is useless. And he says, you know what? It cannot get you anything. Getting upset never accomplishes anything. Getting upset will never get you more money. It'll never get you that cute guy or girl. It'll never get you the promotion you wanted. Like, getting upset doesn't work. And so he says, so stop it. I just don't do it. Don't get upset, and then anger won't have any food, and anger won't have anything to get stronger from. And then that is actually, in that contemplation, was one of Master Shantideva's most famous verses. And it's actually a homework to memorize it. And this is the one where it said, if there is something that you can do about it, why should you feel upset? And if there is nothing you can do about it, what use is being upset? There's a few different ways of translating that, but look through your reading and go through which one sits the best with you, and then memorize it. I've heard it said as if you can't do anything about it, why be upset? And if you can do something about it, why be upset? Just do it. You know. So there's, but that is the premise. So take a look at what it actually says in your reading, and please memorize it. It comes in handy. Beautiful, beautiful holy words. See, basically what that's saying is, if the thing is fixable, don't get upset about it, just fix it. And if it's not fixable and you can't do anything about it, then just shut up and don't be upset, because if you are upset, you're going to feed your anger, and that's going to make you stupid. So it's going to actually end up hurting you more than the fact that something's not fixed, right? Or not fixable. So it's going to destroy all the good karma that is bringing you anything you like in your life anyways. So don't do it, is what he's saying. So those are two logical statements. The first one, feeling upset doesn't help anything. And on the other hand, if something is fixable, just fix it. Let's listen to that one again, because it's really pretty. Anger feeds on the food of feeling upset, then strengthened turns to smash me, and so then I will smash the sustenance that feeds this enemy of mine. My foe knows no other kind of work at all except to cause me pain. No matter what happens, I will not allow my joy to be disturbed. Feeling upset cannot allow me to accomplish my hopes, and only makes me lose the goodness that I have. If there is something that you can do about it, why should you feel upset? If there is nothing that you can do about it, what use is being upset? Geshe actually talks about another secret thing. You're getting a really secret class here. When you're in the presence of someone who's upset, you can feel it, right? There's a wind, there's an energy that happens, a physical wind that starts to, it's a little contagious too. So it can be, and your anger or your upset can infect other people in that way. Now you can take that to the debate ground because you can't actually affect another person, but if they have the karma to be upset, your upset can be catchy, you know? So again, that's a subtle energy thing, but interesting to think about. So what to do about it? The antidote for getting upset is your own sense of joy. It can be an internal struggle, but the teaching is keep your own joy. Shield your joy from the influence of other people's affliction. Refuse to get sucked into other people's mental afflictions. And it's a trick at first. It's a spiritual trick. You kind of have to fake it till you make it sometimes on that one. But really, really, really work to hold on to your joy in the midst of a klesha attack or in the midst of being influenced by other people who are unhappy. And maintain your joy from the inside. So, Master Shantidevas gives us 3 choices. Understand that getting upset is totally useless because it has no function in providing you with what you are seeking. Like, whatever you're wanting that isn't happening, being angry is not going to get it for you, right? Mm-hmm. Second, if you can fix it, then just go out and fix it. And the third one, if you can't fix it, keep your joy. Don't feed your anger. And really, there's no other choice. Okay, a little bit more advice on what to do about it. This is really sweet. So we're going to do another contemplation. There is nothing in the world which does not come easily if you make a habit of it. Make then a habit of bearing the small pains and thus endure the greater. Okay, so that was actually the tail end of the last one, but that is really great advice, right? Master Shantideva is big on this, on habit. He's famous for saying, too, nothing gets harder with practice. So, yeah, nothing gets harder with practice. So, and he's also really, really big on starting small. Like, don't pull out your eyeball and give it to someone if you're going to feel pain and can't deal with it, right? And you're going to regret it. Start with carrots and potatoes. Give away carrots and potatoes, right? And he says with your things that irritate you or will upset you, start with the small ones. Like, start holding your joy with the small ones and then work your way up. Like, don't go right into something that you know is going to take you down at the knees and try to like hold your joy, right? Like, I mean, actually you could if you're strong enough, but more often than not, you know, Geshe says it's like trying to stop the flow of the Mississippi. You'll have about 5 seconds. So, but those 5 seconds are going to count, but that is about all you're going to have. So Master Shantideva is big on starting small and building up. And he says it'll save you time too. If you train yourself to not get irritated at people, you're going to save about 20, gives you a stat, 20% of your life you're going to save that you could devote to other things that are more useful to you. Because it really is a habit. How we think of ourselves or how we think of our kleshas is a habit, and we can change that. You can decide that you're going to have a different sense of reality. You know, Master Shantideva, further on, I'm not sure if it's in this course, but further on is going to teach us even more about habit and about how it's only habit that we think of ourselves as stopping here.
Mm.
you know, and that if we can expand the boundary of ourselves, if we can habituate ourselves to opening our hearts and including more than one person, couples are good for that. Like you've expanded your world to the two of you, or you have a child, you expanded the world to the three of you, right? Or so on and so forth. But to be able to do that with people that maybe you're not even related to through blood or marriage or anything like that, it's pretty cool. THY9, by the way, the partner yoga series is all about doing yoga as two bodies being one. Like it's the two as one yoga. Actually, it's really beautiful, and that's advanced Master Shantideva. But we're going to start small here. And he says you can do it. You can perfect patience with practice, and practice makes perfect. You could perfect patience with practice because practice makes perfect. Pun intended. So yeah, if you can bear with the small irritations, then you can build up to the big ones, and you can totally change your perceptions. And you can get used to anything if you try. It's just a matter of practice. There is nothing in the world that does not come easily if you do not make a habit of it. So make a habit of bearing the small pains and thus endure the greater. Like if you can do it with the small ones, bigger ones are going to be a piece of cake. Okay? So, habits are mental. They're not set in stone. You can change your mind, It takes practice, but it is possible. Okay. Home stretch, guys. I think this is our last. Oh no. Second to last quote. Okay. Sometimes when they catch sight of their own blood, some rise to a higher ferocity. Some, when they see another person's blood, faint and fall unconscious. All of this is derived from neither steadfastness nor cowardliness in the mind. Learn then to disregard arms and never allow any pain to touch you. Hurt may come, but the wise never let suffering cloud their clarity of mind. Master Shantideva does use the terms of warfare. Like he talks about kleshas being your biggest enemy, right? Like more so than any terrorist. Because remember, a terrorist will have family, they'll have friends, they'll have hobbies. But your kleshas, their only job is to bother you 24/7, right? So he often used like you have to take war, you have to wage war on your mental afflictions. Here he's using the warfare example where he's saying some people in battle, when they're cut or they see blood, it actually gives them some sort of adrenaline rush and fuels their excitement and their power. Others get a little scratch and they pass out from the sight of blood. So he's describing these two types of beings, right? And then he says, though all this is derived from neither steadfastness or all of this is derived from either steadfastness or cowardliness in the mind. So it doesn't have to do with how big the person is or how strong the person is. It has to do with the strength of their mind. And so basically what he's saying is that everything's mental and that patience is a state of mind. Patience is not about how big and brawny you are. Patience is completely mental. It's not physical. And so with those bodies of those two warriors, there is no difference in what happened to them. Their experience differs, though, because of their mental state, right? So what that means is that all the different ways that we see things, right, all the different ways that we perceive things, all of it is a matter of mental habit. Now, karma is just another word for habit, really. And because it's a habit, we can learn to change them. We can retrain ourselves, right? There's nothing about the way that you perceive the world which is not changeable if you decide to. because it is all a matter of habit. But you do have to decide, and you do have to start small. And, he says, Master Shantideva says, there's no quality of the mind that is difficult to attain if you make a habit of it, because habits are the very root of the way in which we perceive the entire world. Another way you can say about, it's a matter of habit, it's a matter of what you're used to also. Oh, I'm sorry, I said it was the last two. It was the last three. There's two more. Okay, ready for the next one? Yeah. We are locked in combat with mental afflictions, and in war many wounds are sustained. Ignore then any pain that might come. Smash the foes of anger and such. Conquering this is the thing that makes the warrior. The rest are killing only corpses. Yeah, more war terminology, okay? So we are declaring war on our big enemy, which is our own anger, our own, it's not even just anger, but we started off with that. It's our own jealousy, our own ignorant desire, our own pride. Name your favorite mental affliction, right? Master Shantideva says you're at war, and quite frankly, you're going to take some hits. If you fight a worthy opponent, you are going to take some shots. There are going to be bad days. Mental afflictions do not go away that easily. But if you can fight them, and if you beat them, then you're better than any so-called warrior out there who's like using a machine gun or something. They are only killing corpses. What Gyaltsabje's meaning by that, they're killing corpses, is that you don't have to shoot your enemy. They're going to die anyways. Given enough time and circumstances, they're going to die. Their bodies will kill themselves. They say if you put a body in a museum and kept it perfectly environmentally controlled and fed and watered and exercised it will still kill itself. That body will still die. So you could shoot someone in battle, or they will die anyways, right? So the body is mortal and it will kill itself. So that's what that quote, killing corpses, is. He is not condoning killing, by the way, but he's just saying that, it's you're killing corpses in a worldly war. But if you can kill your mental afflictions, that's something that's going to last. That's something that's going to really give you what you need. Last quote. Okay. We are locked in combat with mental afflictions, and in war many wounds are sustained. Ignore then any pains that may come. Smash the pains of anger and such. Conquering these is the thing that makes you a warrior. The rest are killing only corpses. Sorry, that was the same one, but maybe it sounded a little bit different. Interesting, hey? Ignore then any pains that may come. Smash the pains of anger and such. Conquering these is the thing that makes you a warrior. The rest are only killing corpses. So we're going to end off with a description of the 3 kinds of patience. See, we can't end the class without giving you some sort of a list, right? I started with a list, and here's your final list. So 3 kinds of patience. The first one, say Dugnao, Dangdu, Lembe, Supa. This is the first kind of patience that says basically changing a negative thing into a positive thing. Like when a bad thing's happen, say, how can I change it into something positive? Like say you get fired from your job. Yay, now I have time to go and do something I really want to do, like that. It's, or, when some tragedy happens, it's like using it as, instead of just like bemoaning it and getting all upset, using it as something to move you higher. Basically making lemonade out of lemons, right? So that's the first one. Second one, say chula, nepar, seme,
7.
Supa.
Super.
This translates to the patience which concentrates on the Dharma. So what this means is that you have some sort of understanding and faith and devotion in the Dharma, and that you have the type. This is actually very, very close to joyful effort. They call this a form of patience, and they identify it as patience which concentrates on the Dharma. But it means that you are so inspired and have so much faith in what Dharma can do for you that you devote yourself to your practice, to your meditation. You're going to do retreats even if the bugs come, and you're going to sit there and do your practice. It's some kind of devotion or love or belief for the Dharma. It is a patience, and it does naturally flow into joyous effort, as we'll probably learn in future classes. But that's the second type of patience. The third kind, say nupa,
Nupa.
chapala,
Chapala.
ji,
Ji.
minyampe,
Nyampe.
supa.
Super.
No matter what someone does to you or to block your happiness, you don't worry about it. You don't get upset. So this last type of patience is really going back to that quote, right? If you can do something about it, you can. If you can do something about it, you do it. You just do it. And if you can't, you don't get upset. That latter part, if there's nothing you can do about it, you don't get upset, is the type of patience they're talking about here. And this is also another form of Dharma drive, because you have faith in what your practice will do for you. But they do identify it as a third type of patience in Tibetan. Okay? And that, my dears, is this first class. So for homeworks, I'm sorry I didn't actually look at the homework or the contemplation, but in the commentary, in this loan, Geshe does say that for your homework this week, just pick one of those quotes. And if you want to get two birds with one stone, because it is a homework question, to memorize that one particular quote, you might use that. That's not what Geshe is saying you have to do, but I'm suggesting for some time management that you might actually choose that one. If it speaks to, that's a homework anyways, but if there is another contemplation that speaks to you, by all means, think about that for the week also. Great. Thank you so much.
Sashi Puki Jikshin Letok Tram Rirabling Shin Yande Gyempadi Sange Shindu Mikte Uwargi Rokun Namdak Shingla Chuparsho Iram Guru Ratna Mandalakam Niryatayami Kewadi Kewokun Sunam Yashe Sotokshing Sunam Yashe Lejunwe Tampa Kunito Parsho.
Thank you.
Hey Zoe, do you want to share a binder for ACI 11?
Sure.
Thank you, that was such a good class.
Thank you.
I
Do you
like
guys
that.
know how to save that file?
Oh yeah.
Sorry, Zoe, what were you saying?
I just really enjoyed that we did the contemplations and we listened to the
It's nice, isn't it?
yeah, I like that.